So we're pleased to welcome you to our event. Just a few words about us. We're Harmony in Health, which is part of the College of Medicine and is the college's link with the Harmony Project, itself inspired by His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales's book, Harmony, A New Way of Looking at Our World. We're exploring ways in which the principles of harmony, that's the cyclical nature of life, interconnectedness and interdependence, diversity, the oneness of everything, how they also apply in our inner world. We want to research, collate, and communicate ancient and more modern ideas around harmony in health and make these ideas accessible to more people. So today's presenters, I'm John Hunter, part of the Harmony in Health team. I've been learning and practicing mind-body disciplines for some 40 years. Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, and my special area of study is the Alexander technique. Our main presenter today is Dr. Eleni Siompanou, who has studied and practiced medicine from many different perspectives as an oncologist, a palliative care consultant, a nutritionist, and an Ayurvedic practitioner. She'll be assisted by Sarah Kurushi, who is a musician, a dancer, and an Alexander technique teacher. Dr. Sumi Chatterjee will be helping us with the breakout rooms. Sumi is a GP and an integrative holistic doctor, as well as a yoga teacher. Our theme today is types. Throughout history, religious and spiritual teachings have seen human nature as reflecting the elemental forces or components of nature, and the elemental forces of nature as being reflected in humankind. Those elements are earth, water, fire, and air. The elemental human types in the West were known as sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic. The idea that these elements formed and influenced the body and mind can be traced back to the influential medieval medical school of Salerno, where ancient Arabic and Greek texts were translated and studied, bringing to Western Europe the ideas of Galen, Hippocrates, Plato, and Pythagoras. This humoral understanding of human nature underpinned not only medicine, but also psychology. It was part of the collective consciousness. William Shakespeare used this principle in, for example, Henry IV, parts 1 and 2. The four main characters are each of a particular temperament. King Henry is melancholic, Prince Hal is sanguine, Sir Harry Hotspur, choleric, and the wonderful Sir John Falstaff, phlegmatic. And Shakespeare's audience would have recognized them as types. Ben Jonson wrote the play, Every Man Out of His Humour. T.S. Eliot, it is thought, based his 4 quartets on the 4 elements. And Carl Jung's psychological types were inspired by the theory of humours. These ideas dominated medicine for more than 1300 years, and it was not really until the discovery of pathogens that they were discarded. But did we throw out the baby with the bathwater? Was there something of real value in an approach which linked psychology, physical health, and the environment in a direct way through the elements and types? In the last century, everything in medicine became focused on the cell, But a holistic movement that also began in the last century has led to a renewed search for ways to see interconnectivity in our world. Only relatively recently, a teaching that the British Raj had largely dismissed when they came across it made its way west. A teaching even more ancient than that of Hippocrates, and possibly even its source, bearing remarkable similarities to it. A teaching practiced as part of an unbroken tradition in its native country, India. That teaching is called Ayurveda. Then I'll hand over now to Eleni.
Thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. Can we have the slide, John? Thank you for joining us today to explore this amazing subject of types. Every time I look at it, I find something new, which helps me understand further what it is about. As John said, I'm the lead for the Harmony in Health project at the College of Medicine, but I'm also a consultant in palliative medicine in a hospice. As a palliative care doctor, I'm presented with an amazing door and entree into people's lives. Primarily, this is because at the end of our lives, our habitual social mask often falls away. Our fragile lives, our vulnerability, our shared humanity becomes apparent. We are revealed as who we really are, because when we're dying, there is no space for the mask to be there anymore. So in the hospice, I have the possibility, as do my colleagues, other hospice staff, of seeing people in their true essential nature, which is partly why I'm interested in this subject. Next slide, John. In the Harmony in Health group, my colleagues and I, we are working to understand and define health in a new way. So we are looking at health through the prism of harmony. In many perennial philosophies and ancient medical tradition, health is seen as harmony of man's elemental components, a sense of balance. When there is imbalance, a disturbance of this harmony, then we are unhealthy. The word harmony, harmonia, comes from the ancient Greek word armozo, which means to join, to combine contrasted elements. These elements were defined by the Hippocratic doctor as fire and water, in Chinese medicine as yin and yang. Today I'm going to look at health through the point of view of Ayurveda, which, as John said, is a 5,000-year-old Indian traditional medicine. There are also other systems like Chinese medicine, Unani medicine, Tibetan medicine, TB, that look at health as harmony of elements. Another way of looking at human being is the combination of body, mind, emotions, and spirit. All these traditional medical systems are being used by millions of people around the world, and the basis has an understanding that there are laws in nature that affect human beings and all creation, the world around them. So these laws are what we call nature's principles of harmony, defined here as interconnectedness, diversity, cycles, adaptation, beauty, oneness, which is the big one. There may be more principles, but today we're going to look at the principle of diversity from the point of view of human beings and their diverse typology. So next slide. At the last workshop, we discussed the 6 tastes. We saw that our attraction to some of them, in preference to others, has to do with our individual type. So what do we mean by type? Constitution. We mean our essential nature, the nature with which we were born. Our type affects what we look like, our bodily features, the shape of our face, of our nose, our hair, our fingers, our internal organs, how we think and feel, our preferences in everything, in taste, in foods, in habits, in activities, in exercises. Our type affects how our digestion works and elimination. Our type affects our choice in partners. Our type affects our susceptibility to diseases. It can affect even how we die. But of course, in comes the environment, our parents, education, culture, society, and they put layers on us, changing us, molding our personality, which can then manifest in its own way and is something different to our essential type, our essential nature, which is hidden away. Something to think about. But everything in the body is connected, and if we look at it through the principles of the 3 principles that I'm going to describe and through the 5 elements, then we understand them better. Next slide, John. So the 5 elements of 5 great elements, as John mentioned, in Ayurveda are considered ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Next slide, John. So Ayurveda has a unique way of looking at types, which is based on the concept of what is called doshas. And I will explain how dosha can be translated. There are 3 doshas, Vata, Pita, and Kapha. Each dosha is composed of all 5 elements, but some are more predominant than others. Everything that happens in the body can be on any level, cellular, organ level, can be translated through these doshas. I think we should look at doshas as forces, primary elements, and in a way they define our type, our character. Dr. Pisha Rodi, whose photo you see there, was an Ayurvedic doctor and scholar, and he was also a palliative care physician. Unfortunately, he died in a road traffic accident a couple of years ago. He wrote an amazing book, Ashtanga Hridayam. So in it, he says, a question could arise, why should it be 3? Why not 4 forces? This is because there are only 2 opposing energies in the world, Agni and Soma. And the third energy is to control and facilitate the functioning of these 2 opposing energies. In classical Indian literature, the whole natural world is made up of Agni, which is fire, and Soma, which is water. The fire and water, which is used by Hippocrates and other ancient physicians, a positive and a negative force. These forces need to be observed within ourselves over a long period of time to be understood. They can be understood on many levels, but on the level of what can help us in our body and in relation to the environment, they can be seen as heating and cooling, moistening and drying. If you're interested, read more about it. I've been studying this for years and I still have things that I discover. Next slide, John. So what determines our constitution? It depends on our parents, really, on the type of our parents, so on the constitution of our parents, their genes. It depends on the time of our conception, the planetary position at the time of conception, and I put this down as other factors. Some Indian traditions and the Buddhist tradition believe that our type also depends on previous lives, what they call karma. But even if you have secular beliefs, science has revealed through epigenetics, the science of epigenetics, that how we are can be influenced by what happened to our grandparents and our great-grandparents, whose lives and habits can leave a signature on our inherited genes. Next slide. So let's talk first about Vata. Vata is the combination of air and ether, but primarily it's air. These three forces, it's interesting, we understand them better if you look at them through the qualities that they have. So we know that Vata is cold and light, like a feather, like a bird that is flying. Pita, on the other hand, which is fire, is hot, like hot metal. And Kapha is cold and heavy. Vata is responsible for all movement in the body and mind. So anything in the body that moves is due to Vata. So our breathing, our heart movement, the blinking of our eyes, restlessness of the body, the restlessness of our hands and feet, being unable to sit in one place. Shivering is due to Vata. Talking too much and too fast is due to Vata. Vata makes people have unstable joints. Vata is also dry. So anything in the body that is dry is due to Vata. Our skin, our eyes, our lips. Vata makes people also have swinging moods, so it's movement. Their mind is scattered and their faith could be shaky. Vata makes people do many things at the same time, multitasking. Vata controls the movement of the stomach and the bowel. And too much Vata, we know, can make people constipated. It's actually one of the main characteristics that you can distinguish someone who has this predominant energy in them. Vata has an effect on hair, and again, movement, it can make them curly and dry because it is light and drying. Think of the air that dries out everything. Vata makes people have insomnia because it moves them, it wants them to move, and scanty sleep. Vata makes people have a thin frame and be underweight. But on a psychological level, it gives them a clear mind. Vata, people who have a lot of Vata in them can be clairvoyant. They can grasp ideas immediately and they can understand what's going on. But on the other hand, because the thoughts move, they can tend to forget quickly. They are the ones that create ideas and write poetry and stories and music. They are the poets. Again, on a psychological level, when things go wrong, Vata makes people anxious, gives them panic attacks, and fear gives them goosebumps, makes them feel insecure. Vata also is very important for the nervous system, so it can create problems like motor neuron disease, multiple sclerosis, and it can create psychiatric disorders. Next slide, John. So Pitta. Pitta is the combination of fire and water element, but it's predominantly fire. So if we look again at Pitta in terms of the qualities that it has, fire is penetrating. So Pitta is important for moving into deep tissues in the body. Pitta is hot due to the fire element in it. So Pitta is responsible for our body temperature. It is responsible for everything that transforms in the body. The key digestion in our stomach and all the metabolic activities on a cellular level, the hormones. It's responsible for the heat in our breath and for us being able to see, for the eyesight. Whenever a person has a fever, it's due to the increase in Pitta force. Pitta is also light. Fire is light. So another quality is the unpleasant odor that it has. So whenever there is bad breath, it's due to Pitta. Bitter taste in the mouth, the unpleasant smell sometimes of sweat under the armpits, the smell of the urine and the feces is due to Pitta. So whenever there is a smell that is bad, it's due to it. There's probably too much fire. I remember it as thinking of babies who are usually mainly Kapha. They have such a pleasant odor. You just want to smell a baby. Other qualities of Pitta is that it's oily and unctuous. The same way when you put some kind of fat in the fire, it keeps it going. Oiliness is a feature of Pitta. The color of the skin is dependent on Pitta. People with freckles have predominance of fire in them, Pitta. The redness of the skin. But also Pitta is responsible for the transformation on our skin of vitamin D, transforming it into an active form, which is so important for our immune system. On a psychological level, on a mind level, Pitta, because of its quality of sharpness, makes people quick thinkers. They're quick to talk, they're quick to act. They have sharp memory and understanding. They are the leaders, those that make decisions. Vata people, as we said, create lots of ideas, and Pitta people, or Pitta cooks them in their mind and brings them into fruition. Pitta people can be good fighters and protectors, but they can also be angry and irritable. They can be aggressive and antagonistic. The same way fire in Pitta spreads, Pitta in people makes them want to spread the name and become famous. They are ambitious and achievers. Next slide, John. So Kapha. Kapha dosha is a combination of earth and water. So if we think again in terms of qualities, of the qualities of earth and water, Kapha is heavy, cold, but it's also oily and viscous. So Kapha is responsible for the lubrication and the stability in the body. Think of it as what holds all the tissues and organs in their place, what holds the cells to keep their function, such as keeps the heart cells to stay heart cells and not become something else, lung cells. The lubrication of the joints, the fluid in our spine and around our brain, the fluid around our lungs, the pleural fluid, the intracellular fluid, the phlegm, all are governed by Kapha. The oiliness on our skin is due to Kapha. You can immediately understand that oily foods and fat make people, they increase the Kapha inside them. Kapha is also cold, different cold than Vata. Vata is also cold because of the air. Kapha is cold because of the water element. So Kapha is increased during winter and during cold and rainy weather. And that's when respiratory conditions increase, mostly due to Kapha, phlegm increasing. So we can immediately see that cold showers, cold drinks, ice creams, cold food can increase Kapha. So during Kapha season, during winter, or when you have a Kapha-related conditions such as flu or COVID virus infection, a chest infection, we need to avoid all exposure to cold air, cold water, inside and outside, and cold foods. Kapha is also heavy. Water is heavy. In Indian, in Sanskrit, is called guru, which means that Kapha makes us overweight, makes people heavy in their movements, heavy in their thoughts and in their feelings, depressed. Which is why Kapha on a psychological level delays our understanding, slows us down, slows down the thought process, slows down the decision making. You will see people who have high Pita, they are very quick to think and say something, respond to a demand. They're quick in making decisions. Kapha people are more slow. Perhaps they need to rein in the people who have a lot of Pita in them. Kapha also makes someone slow in the way they talk and in the way they move. But it also makes them more mild, quiet, peaceful. Kapha is like a cat that doesn't want to be bothered, wants to sit quietly. Kapha is like jelly who will absorb the shocks in the body. Like if a person has an injury, it will absorb the shock in the joints or will protect the brain. Kapha is also smooth, so it gives people an attractive, smooth skin complexion. Kapha is also clarity due to the water element. And although people who have a lot of Kapha in them, they are slow thinkers and they're slow to make a decision, it also gives them clarity in their thoughts and their understanding. It gives them a clear head. They also have clear, beautiful big eyes with clear sclera. The skin is clear, unlike Pitta skin, which we said has freckles and spots, and unlike Vata, which is dry and crackly and with wrinkles. So stability and immobility are characteristics of Kapha. They're grounded. On the other hand, when there's stiffness in joints, it is due to Kapha, such as people have osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. Next slide, John. I was amazed when I saw this in Dr. Basan Lad's book, which is one of the main textbooks that we study in Ayurveda, that even tears flow according to predominant dosha, and tears differ in qualities. So if you observe yourself and other people where the tears come from, you can understand whether they're crying because they feel sad and lonely or afraid, or because they're frustrated and angry, or because they cry out of love and compassion. And the taste of the tears differs according to Vata, which has a stringent and bitter taste, and Pita, which is more sour and salty, and Kapha, which is sweet. They are the ones that have a lot of love in them, or Kapha brings love and compassion in us. Next slide, John. So there are 7 types of constitution which come from the combination of these forces. So Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and the combination Vata, Pitta, Pitta, Kapha, Vata, Kapha, and the 3 of them. Among these 7 general types, there are innumerable subtle variations that depend upon the percentage of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha energies. So that gives us a taste of types, and in terms of Ayurveda. But John and Sarah are going to give us some exercises now.
Okay, thank you, Eleni. Well, we thought we wanted to have a practical element to this workshop, and we thought it would be interesting to incorporate something from another tradition, but also based on the theory of elements. So we've selected some simple Qigong exercises for the 5 elements. The 5 elements are slightly different in Chinese medicine. They are earth, water, fire, wood, and metal. And we invite you to try these if you'd like to. They're simple, they should be done very gently. They're about relaxation and fluidity. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah now.
I'm going to move my computer so that you can see the full body, and as I do that, make yourself some space as well. So we're going to be standing for these, and be sure you have enough space to move your arms out to the side and to stand quite wide. So we stand first with the feet together. And the arms just hanging loose by the side, and just take a moment to find yourself in the standing position. So allow the weight of your body to drop down and allow the lightness to rise up. And the first element that we're going to start with is the wood element. And what I'll do is I'll show you once through, and then watch the first time, and then I'll guide you through it. So step to the side, bend the knees, coming up the thighs, sort of massaging the internal organs, bending the knees and releasing back down. So let's try that together. We step out to the left, we bend the knees, and we just gently massage the thighs, coming up, and then we release and we're massaging down, bringing the arms up. We try to find a nice rhythm with this and come back. This time we step out to the right, bending the knees, gently massaging up. Almost an internal organ massage, think of it as that. When do we ever allow ourselves to do that? Back down. And this time we can incorporate the breath. So we go with a nice in-breath all the way up. And exhaling as we bend the knees. And release. So breathing in. And exhaling. Just do one more of these. Inhalation. And then stand hips, the feet sort of hip distance apart. You can have your arms just resting down, or if you like, you can rest your hands on the hara. I like to have my arms just resting down. And we just bring the palms of the arms up, and we allow this movement that we've just discovered to settle. You can almost feel the energy that you've created. Allow it to settle. And the arms just resting by your side. Take a couple of breaths. And then feet together. So I'm going to show you the next one. So as before, just watch the first time. And then I'll guide you through it. This one's fire. Put the pinkies together. So I'm going to have to move my video so you can see what I'm doing with my hands. So I'm drawing the hands together, the pinkies are touching, and I'm rising up. And then I allow the backs of the palms to touch as I bend the knees. I come all the way down and I raise the arms to the side this time. Let's try that together. Very small step out. So I bring the pinkies together, raise the hands up above my head. Very gently bring the backs of the palms of the hands together as I bend the knees. Bending at the hips, and allow the arms to gently sail back up. This time we step out to the right, bringing the pinkies together. Fire. Backs of the palms together. Bending of the knees. Arms sailing out. Feet back together. We'll see if we can incorporate the breath this time. So inhalation up. Exhalation down. Inhalation back up. Exhalation down. You can feel the fire energy inside. Inhalation up. Exhalation, palms of the hands, legs bending, nice fluid movements. Good, and then again let the feet be hip distance apart, and we're just going to gather that fire energy. Feel the energy you've created. Allow it to settle. And just resting. So I have one more, which is the earth. Again, I'll show you the first time. This is my favorite. It's a beautiful movement. It's a bit more complex. We step out to the left, the arms come up, and then we cross over the body and we swoop down. And we raise the arms up. A little bit more complicated, but I shall guide you through it. Step out to the left, bring the arms up and look up at your arms. Palms facing you at this moment. Back arm comes, the hand comes under as if you're holding a tray, so your palm is flat. And this front arm goes straight across your body, and then it's a nice twist. Your whole body is twisting, your feet are planted down as far as you can go, and then you extend the back arm out, and you turn this front arm so that you can almost brush the floor as you bend the knees down, brushing the floor with that arm, and then both arms come up together. We'll try the right side, stepping out to the right, both arms up, and then you're holding a tray with the back arm. This arm comes nice and flat, and you just swoop across, straighten that back arm, brush the floor, and both arms come back up. Don't worry too much about the specifics of the movement, but try to feel the curvature in the body as you step out to the left. There's a nice sweeping motion that you can find in this movement. Stepping out to the right. Earth element. So gather your feet hip distance apart, gather the earth that you can probably feel from that nice curving movement. Let it settle. Good. Take a couple of breaths whilst I hand over to John. John will do a couple more of these, so stay where you are.
The next element is metal, which has some similarities with air in other traditions. And you start with your feet about hip width apart. You can also do the side steps with these, but I've got a narrow screen, so I'm just going to stay in the center. You bend your knees a little, you find that contact with the ground and a sense of your verticality rising up. Then you bring your hands up and then from behind, almost behind your lungs, you push them forward as you go into a deeper bend. And then straighten your knees. So again, rising up, bringing the hands behind your lungs and coming forward as you bend. Then we try to link that with breath. As your hands are coming up, you're inhaling. And as you bend your knees and the hands come forward, you exhale. And inhale, exhale. Inhale. And one more time. And then gathering that energy And then the last one, water. So again, the hands rise up, and as far as is comfortable for you, you can bend back a little bit, don't go too far. Just opening the chest, and then sweeping forward to bend, and your hands come around the backs of your legs. And as you straighten up, the hands are massaging the backs of the legs. And they can come up to the kidneys, and you just, with your fists, just tap your kidneys. And then slide your hands back down the backs of your legs. And then this time you come up the inside of your legs. And back to the start. So, rising up, bending back. And the breath goes out as you come down. Hands round the backs of the legs. Breath comes in. And up the insides of the legs with the inhalation. And one last time. Rising up, bending back. Hands coming up the backs of the legs. Coming up the insides of the legs. And just gathering and settling that energy. Okay, and then you can sit down. So we're going to go into our breakout rooms now for 7 or 8 minutes and just exchange on what we've been finding from the presentation and from the exercises, and then we'll come back and share that. Perhaps 1 or 2 of you from each room can just give us a bit of feedback about your discussion and what you found interesting, or any questions.
So, John, in our room, we had a few questions that perhaps either yourself or Dr. Champana could reflect on. One is that one member works with the 5 elements, the Chinese elements, is familiar with those. But how could we incorporate the Vita Pitta, the doshas, the 3 elements? What's the relationship between the Chinese and the Ayurvedic system? Is it a combination? Can you maybe reflect a bit more on that? Someone else said that they felt very relaxed, felt they were yawning after the exercises, so that felt good, something was working. Also, can you change your dosha type that you're born with? So if you're born Vita, could you is it dynamic? Could you through your life change it and become a different one? And a question to you, Eleni, was how do you incorporate this wisdom that you know, that you've learnt, into your actual practice, into your actual work? Also, how to pin back the types to ourselves. So if, for example, I'm feeling quite Pitta today, what would be the best thing for me to do? Would it be to go and do the Pitta, the fire element exercise, or would it be better to balance myself with the earth ones? How do I work with once I get to know myself? And finally, we had a very lovely comment that said that it's such a great reminder to have this self-awareness exercises incorporated into this workshop to remind us, especially in these hard times that we're going through, that there is a lot we can do. to connect ourselves to ourselves and to nature. And a great thank you for that reminder. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, we had similar points in ours about the different systems from different cultures, which we thought was probably because people really observed then. They observed human beings and their behavior, and they learned in that way. So came to similar, if not identical, conclusions. People liked the fluidity of the exercises. There was also a question about, can you change your type? And what about the other two rooms? Can somebody give us some feedback?
I'm really sorry, John. There was 4 people in my room, but I don't think they were able to unmute or unvideo themselves. So I literally spoke to myself, but I can reflect on what I found. I found it was, again, being a yoga teacher, it was quite interesting seeing that connection. You know, I was trying to marry the movements we were doing with you both with yoga moves. And I found that this particular movement, you're really feeling the energy, you're more aware of the energy than I feel when we're doing yoga, because with yoga we're more focused on the breath. So that was a really interesting element I found, which I never really considered before. So that was really a really useful insight for me. So thank you. And I'm sorry, the rest of my group, I think, I'm not sure whether they were not there or their microphones weren't working, but
okay,
yeah.
Thank you, Sumi. And for people who were in a room, what can you share?
John? Sorry, anybody else is speaking, or?
No, that's fine, you talk.
Oh, sorry. Well, the 2 questions, again, how do you change, if you can, how do you change your type? And then how to self-diagnose your type? So if there's any kind of advice on a book people can read to learn a bit more about Ayurvedic medicine. And then we shared our experiences, and that's it, I believe. I don't know if Jessica wants to add something.
Only that it would be useful if Eleni put the names of the books somewhere clear that we can read them at the end.
I'm sure she will, yes.
Okay.
I was also curious about, because this is lately for me very important, does this connects in any way with male and female also energies, or how does it correspond with this, or does it matter anyhow?
I
Okay.
forgot about that question.
Thank you, Malgorzata. Anything else from the rooms before I ask Eleni to respond? Okay, so Eleni.
So, yes, thank you. It's fascinating. And the next, I was going to talk about how we change our constitution in following up perhaps you can put the slides up, John, because it gives an idea. It answers some of the questions. So regarding how to self-diagnose, it's quite difficult to unravel yourself and go down to your essential nature. We tend to cover ourselves, and due to education and outside environment, we change. We change how we correspond to what happens around us. Sometimes we hide ourselves. We want to be in accordance with society, so we behave in a different way. Education molds us. system molders. So sometimes, even for the practitioner, it's difficult from the first or the second or even the third meeting to find out someone's type. In Ayurveda, they call it Prakruti. What is usually visible to the practitioner is the Prakruti, which is what state you're in now. And that is influenced by all sorts of things. Is it up on the screen, John? Yes. Next one, please. So it's influenced by age, our age. So we change as we go from when we are young. It's the Kapha type or time of our life. Then there's fire, Pita. We can do lots of things. Then as we grow older, from 50 years onwards, we become more Vata, which is why people have drier skin, have more wrinkles, they are more prone to osteoporosis, they sleep worse, they wake up earlier. At the end, the dying process, it's the most drying process, is the ultimate stage of Vata, when all fire goes away and the person dies. So we're also molded by the place we live in, the geographical location. So people in India are milder, they are more Kapha. People in mountains, Scotland, they are more fiery and more fighting. So you can understand what I mean. We are molded by the climate. So if there is a lot of sun, if there is a lot of air, if there's a lot of water, people are different. Our diet can influence us and our lifestyle. So if a Vata person has an accident, Vata people, for example, like to move a lot. They are dancers. Let's say a dancer has an accident and stops moving because they broke something in their body. They will become more Kapha, they become more heavy, they eat more, so their lifestyle can influence their Prakruti, their current state. So when we self-diagnose, we actually, I think most of the time, self-diagnose our current state, which is fine because our current state shows us what we need to do to become more balanced. But our essential nature needs more work on ourselves, which is the ultimate ancient Greek saying, know thyself, which is, Socrates said, was the aim of his life. But if you want to have some idea of what's going on in you, Sandy, who is joining this meeting, has created a website called Be Superfied, BESUPERFIED.com. Perhaps John can put it on chat, people can see. And we'll send at the end a list of books to look at if you want to explore this further. And I think if you are interested, I think this is the beginning of Harmony in Health workshops, and we can explore this further. There are people who meet together and go through this. It's a long study, I would say. Can you change your dosha? You can change your state. You can never change what you're born with. You can't change your genes. But as modern science says, you can, yes, you can change by your behavior, which is through the science of epigenetics. You can switch on and off genes. But certainly, if someone is born less sharp, for example, with less fire. Certainly with the right diet and lifestyle, they can influence how their life is. They can become sharper. Or the opposite, you can, by your diet and lifestyle, you can become heavier, you can become more depressed, you can become more anxious and panicky. So certainly you can influence your state. You cannot change your genes, but you can modulate their expression. If we go to the next slide, there are certain things that can balance Vata, which is try to go to bed early, even 8:30, 9 o'clock, because Vata wakes us up at 2, 3 o'clock. And it's interesting that in many monastic traditions, that's when monks get up and do their prayer and meditation is the best time to connect with something higher, lighter. How to balance Vata? Vata needs to have schedule, program, and needs to eat meals at the same time every day, because they're so mobile they can forget to eat, and that makes things then more imbalanced. Ensure regular bowel activity and have foods that are more oily and it depends on the season as well, warm and with water in them. So keep warm, drink plenty of water, and as we talked in the previous workshop, favor sweet, sour and salty foods. And have generally a calm atmosphere, because Vata are quite scatty and restless, so they need a calming and regular routine, and they need natural exercises that in a way calm them down. Instead of what they do is go running and do lots of exercise, which is fine, but it actually imbalances them even further. In Ayurveda, you treat something with its opposite in order to bring balance. So in a way, you need to like what you don't like to have more balance. Next slide. For Vata, for Pita, how to balance Pita. Avoid extreme heat, abstain from alcohol and smoking and coffee. Our society is encourages Pita. If you go to the city, it's full of people who have Pita imbalance. They drink coffee all day, they drink alcohol, smoke. People who take drugs, they aggravate their Pita. And to balance Pita, you need to avoid overactivity and finish work on time, because Pita pushes you. The Pita makes you ambitious, and so you can forget to relax and have a calming time in the day. And it creates stress. And if we look at it, there are so many stress-related illnesses. From the point of view of tastes, to balance Pita, you need to favor sweet, astringent, and bitter tastes, and avoid spicy, sour, and salty. So cooling and moderation is the way to balance Pita. And the next slide, how to balance Kapha. Not oversleeping. So Kapha makes you want to sleep at longer, and then that aggravates, it makes you imbalance. Kapha needs plenty of exercise and variety in life, because they can become dull. Kapha needs us to be balanced, to keep warm in cold and wet weather, and favor spicy, bitter and astringent foods, and again natural exercises. And next slide. What do we mean by natural exercises? we mean exercises that do not come with violence in the body. Hippocrates said that all athletes are not normal. Unnatural exercises are the ones that go with the flow of life. And we tried today some Qigong exercises, but yoga, Tai Chi, Alexander technique, Feldenkrais, other somatic practices, certain dances and certain movement, singing and even reciting is a natural exercise. So, next slide is for you to think what you heard today and contact us if you want to work with us, if you have something to contribute to bring together ancient wisdom traditions, perennial wisdom traditions, so that we can look at health in a new way. How do you incorporate it in my practice? Ayurveda changed the way I practice in that I understand people better. I understand my patients, I understand relatives, I understand my colleagues and myself. And then I know how to speak to them, and I don't tell them I practice Ayurveda, but I encourage them, instead of having cold foods, to eat warm foods, instead of having cold drinks, to eat hot drinks. And if someone is more interested, I go into further details and I introduce herbs and spices, the idea of exercises, of sleep. So there are ways of doing it. I'm quite grateful actually that through Hippocrates I found Ayurveda and harmony, and who knows what comes next.
Okay, thank you very much, Eleni. So we just have a little bit of time left if there's any more points that people would like to raise.
Hello, hello, Eleni. Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure, Eduardo.
You hear me? No, I was wondering about if it is hard to change the habits in order to connect with this Ayurvedic knowledge. It's difficult to change habits because, you know, to change habits in order of with food and exercise is challenging, this changing of your type of life in order to be in harmony with Ayurveda principles. It's like how much it demands.
How much?
How much it demands, because it seems like it's very good, but it seems like you have to change a lot of habits. It's like I'm thinking about the process and how we can help in order to make those changes.
It's very interesting, and I think we need to become more embodied. I think people have forgotten quite often they have bodies, and we go to eat without thinking, without connecting with our body. If we were more in contact with our physical body, then we could influence our mind. But John knows a lot about it. It's through Alexander technique that I understood this more.
Yes, I think it's so interesting how these different disciplines, one can become even a bit narrow within a discipline. And we're at a period of human history where there's so much potential for interacting and finding what connects us, even what connects what there is in common with different disciplines. And it has to be done in a respectful way, really, to respect the diversity of different teachings, but also to see what connects us. Gina's reminded me, Eleni, that there was a question about male and female energies.
Now, I always get confused about that. So male is the positive and female is the negative. And there's a very interesting book that actually you can find called Thompson Natural Medicine, which describes, I think, the medicine of in ancient Afghanistan. But yes, so I think male would be fire and female would be water. Yeah, it's fascinating. We could form a study group on that actually and look at it from various traditions, and we could all learn. That's an idea that comes to my mind.
Then we're just about at the end of our time, and we can talk generally about future plans. We're very keen to try to build a collaborative network of people who are interested in working together to research all this material that has as its common ground the principles of harmony. So it's very broad. And we've already made contact with several people who are interested in contributing in some way, and we're very keen to expand that. So if you have an interest in some particular teaching, discipline, knowledge that you have, and you'd like to work with us or get involved in some way, then please do contact us.
Hi, John. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Hi, it's Andrew here, Andrew Sikorsky. I'm chair of something called the British Holistic Medical Association, and we're doing just the same thing, embracing all kinds of practitioners and bringing them together. So we have masses of information if you'd like to get in touch with us. Just Google British Holistic Medical Association. It is aimed at practitioners, but it's open to everybody. And I particularly wanted to say hi to Julie and to Tim Robertson, who's there in the background somewhere, and loads of love to each and every one of you. I think you're doing an amazing, amazing job, and well done.
Thank you very much, and we'll certainly follow up on that. So for our next event, we're not quite decided what we will do. We're thinking perhaps of something along the lines of natural exercise, which is an idea that dates back to Hippocrates. So I think that's about all now, Eleni, unless you've got anything else to say.
No, thank you all for coming, and do get in contact if you want to work with us. Thank you, Sumi, and thank you, Sarah.
Okay, so we hope to see you next time. And the recording will be available to all of you. We'll send you details of that so you can have a look at it. So thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.